This week on Personally Speaking, once again, our guest is the journalist Benjamin Hall. He had a best-selling book called Saved about his time in Ukraine as a foreign correspondent. Now he has a great new book called Resolute, a great interview with a great man. Stay with us as we interview and visit once again with Benjamin Hall. Hello and welcome to Personally Speaking. I'm your host, Monsignor Jim Lisante, and Fox News Channel's veteran war correspondent, Benjamin Hall, joins me now. In February of 2022, Ben suffered horrific, nearly fatal injuries from a missile attack while covering the war in Ukraine. In his #1 New York Times bestseller, Saved, Ben tells the story of his miraculous recovery. In his latest book, which also just became a New York Times bestseller, Resolute, How We Humans Keep Finding Ways to Beat the Toughest Odds, Ben analyzes the key factors that allowed him to survive, endure multiple surgeries, and cope with the psychological burdens of severe trauma. Ben also has a new Fox Nation program titled Resolute with Benjamin Hall, a multi-part series that outlines not only how he survived, but how he thrived and succeeded following his injury. Ben will also talk about the importance of his values, the family, including his great wife, Alicia, and 4 young daughters, and the optimistic nature he says he's blessed to have. Joining me now, I'm so pleased to welcome back to Personally Speaking, Fox News Channel journalist, Benjamin Hall. We're here with Benjamin Hall. We welcome him back to Personally Speaking. He is someone who's been with us when his first best-selling book, Saved, was published, and now there's a new book called Resolute. And I want to start with that very simple one-word name for the book. What does it mean in your mind? What's the word mean?
You know, first of all, I wanted to write a book and at its core was going to be resilience. But when I was thinking about resilience, I wanted an idea that resilience doesn't just come to you easily. You know, I don't think that resilience is something that is totally it is natural, but it's something that we have to work at. And Resolute was an idea that you have to put some effort into it as well. You have to have a drive and a focus to get through difficult things. You have to really work on them. And I think that's why I like the word resolute and the title Resolute, is because yes, it has determination in it. It has an idea that you really want to reach somewhere, and you will do what you have to get there, and you will work hard. And that's why I liked it in the whole idea of resilience.
Now, Benjamin Hall, also in addition to the book, which I hope our listeners and viewers will get, is also someone who has a Fox Nation program on a similar theme. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, again, it's also quite a deep dive into, and quite a personal dive into how I got through some of the more difficult moments. And I break it down into different categories. Faith is one of them. Community is another one. Pain. I talk about pain, you know, and I never thought in my life that I would be reaching out and talking to people who are going through difficult, moments of their own life. But I've gone through some really difficult moments, and pain was one of the key ones. And I had to learn how to switch your mind on to get through some of the worst pain you can. And so, look, that's one of the topics I talk about, both in the special as well as in the book. And here I am writing this book and the last book, and so many people reach out to me and they say, and this was the greatest reward. They say, we're going through something really difficult, or we are helping someone who's going through something really difficult. And reading your book has given us a real boost. It's given us momentum. It's helped us to get through the toughest moments. And that's what the book is about. That's what the Fox Nation special is really about as well. Just trying to share. And I didn't want to write a self-help book. You know, it wasn't this in theory. I just wanted to write my experiences of what I'd gone through, but it ended up being somewhat of a self-help book because people read it to get encouragement. And so, again, never thought I would be writing a self-help book, but it turns out that my stories and what's happened to me help other people.
Benjamin is our guest once again, and I mentioned it with the book Resolute because you said people are especially in tune with the struggle with their own personal challenges and pain. I don't compare this at all with the burdens that you've carried, but I battle rheumatoid arthritis. Every morning, Ben, that when I'm about to get out of bed and it's throbbing, the leg is feeling like it's 1,000,000 pounds, there's just a key moment at the beginning of the day where sometimes go through that moment of saying, I don't even want to get out of bed today. If that's happening to me, what happens at the beginning of every day for you when you can either give into kind of despair like I just did, or say, no, I'm waking up with hope. How to get there?
Well, look, first of all, I'm incredibly lucky. I wake up most days and I just think how lucky I am.
Wow.
I think back to the people who were with me. They died that day. The other four people, two members of my crew, Pierre and Sasha. And that is, in many senses, the driving force for me. I just wake up and I say, it doesn't matter how you're feeling today, you still have another chance. You still
Yeah.
have another life. You can go off and do great things when they can't. It doesn't matter if you're going to be uncomfortable today because you're doing what they can't. And I understand the loss that their families feel. I understand that level of loss. And I don't have that. My family doesn't have that. And so that gets me out of bed every single morning. I have a family as well. I have four young children at the moment, and I'm not going to let what I feel and the pain that I feel get in the way of how I will be a father or how I will live my life. And so those things just seem bigger to me than just getting through the pain. But like, I will also say that, yes, my injuries, I'm on prosthetic legs. I've got, see out of one eye, that I've got, a variety of issues on other limbs as well. But it's not, I think that getting through something difficult works on every level, whether it is family problems, whether it is financial problems, whether it is anxiety, whether it is, rheumatoid arthritis. You have to battle the same ideas. Life will be more difficult. There will be things that you find hard to do, but you have to break it down. You have to understand why you're doing it. And you have to know that if you focus your mind in the right direction, you can get through far more than you really know. And so I write the book not just for people injured the way I was injured, but for anyone who's going through something difficult. And those are the lessons I've tried to sort of convey.
Benjamin Hall's our guest. Resolute is the book. You mentioned once again a few moments ago, and you mentioned them both in Saved as well as in this new book, the special bond you had with Sasha, especially with Pierre. But I'm wondering, what have you learned or discovered about the two Ukraine soldiers who died with your friends that day?
Well, they'd actually been part of the military since 2014, and they had come on board to help the media and to help press get around. Like, they understood the importance of that when it came to conflict. Look, one of them was a father of a very young girl who I believe was 1 year old, and so look, those are families that were torn apart as well. But with those two Ukrainians, with Sasha as well, they knew that that was how they were going to fight their battle, was by helping the press, and they wanted to play a big part in that. So, it's one of them had set up an incredible newspaper because he understood the importance of that, and since 2014 onwards, he had set up a newspaper, specifying how the military had gotten through it and writing about what was happening in the military, so the rest of Ukraine understood. So he was a journalist as well, and again, I felt this was a real hit on journalism across the board.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I've often wondered about those two young Ukrainians who died as well. In his book, Benjamin Hall highlights that the way to which we get resolute and we move forward, these are words that I wrote down because I loved it. He talks about becoming accepting, adapting, embracing, aspiring, and reinventing as part of the process of healing and moving forward. But here's what I wonder. Even if Benjamin Hall can come to those moments in his life and put his life back together as you have so powerfully, you're married and you're married to Alicia. And I'm just wondering, what if she's not in the same place you are when you're in that place? Like, how do married people, when they're both going through a trauma, but from different perspectives, bring it into a unity of purpose?
Hmm. Yeah, so many people talk about. I'm so glad you asked about that, actually, because so many people talk about me. You were injured. What's it like for you to walk again? What's it like for you to learn? But this is something that affected the whole family.
Yeah.
And I only realized it when I got home again. I spent 6, 7 months in San Antonio learning to walk in the hospital there. And I thought that when I got home, I'd done it. I had succeeded. And that wasn't the case. The most difficult moments came when I realized, when I lost the 24-hour doctors and nurses and physios, and a lot of that fell onto my wife's shoulders. There were many things that I could no longer do at home that she had to do instead. I write in one chapter about how our house was broken into one night. She was heavily pregnant. Two people broke in 2 a.m. and I couldn't get my legs on. I was in bed, and she was the one that ran downstairs and scared them away, screaming and shouting at them to get out of our house. But what a reversal of roles. I did that. Like I was the guy that protected the family and protected the house. And actually, that was a tough moment for me to realize that I couldn't do that. But again, the way we got through it together is that without even talking about these things, Alicia said, I will step up when you can't, and you can step up and do other things that I used to do. And we work together. And you mentioned those words at the beginning, adapt. And adaptation is one of the most important things. If you get into something really difficult, you have to be well aware that things will be different. And so you adapt to it. We figure out ways where, different ways in which we have to live our lives. And we embrace that as well. Instead of worrying about that or, trying to hide from that, we just say that is the reality of our life today. Things are different. And once you embrace that idea, then a lot of it becomes much easier.
In Benjamin Hall's book, Resolute, one of the things I love is a picture of him and Alicia, but he wrote next to it, she is my rock, my person, my best friend. She gives me all my strength. When you guys got married a number of years ago, did you have any idea what a superwoman Alicia was?
I mean, yes, I did, in the sense that, from the minute I met her, I knew that we just were on the same wavelength, that she was determined. She was a really hard worker. She believed in family first. But I don't think any of us imagined we would be going through what we did go through. And that level, of change and injury. And then again, she absolutely, I was amazed at her again and again, because she just stood straight up and she just said, not once did she say, oh, how this will change our lives or what we won't be able to do anymore. Not a single time to this day hasn't said that. It is whatever we got to do, no problem. We will do it. We will absolutely do it together. And that's our life. So be it. So no, I'm always amazed at what an incredible woman she is.
She really is. She is. I'm hoping that if Pope Francis, before he goes to God, changes the rules for us, that I can find an Alicia. That's what I want. I want your Alicia, because he's amazing. What a blessing it is that you have found a wife like that. Now let's go to something else. That family of origin for a second. Behind me, as you can see, is a picture of Nicholas and Cecilia Lisante, my parents. I know what I get from them. But Roderick and Jenny, the parents who formed and shaped and raised you, what do you see in yourself, Benjamin, that you say, I can trace my roots. I know what I got from mom and dad. What would it be?
Yeah, it's incredible because they were very, very different people. My father was, he was born in the Philippines, in Manila, during World War II. He was in a Japanese prison camp when he was a boy at 8 years old. The rest of his family were killed by the Japanese. And at the age of 12, he lived through the Battle of Manila, which was the worst urban fighting in World War II around the world. And he was told, him and his two younger siblings were just living on the streets, and he was told, if you want us, the Japanese are being beaten by General MacArthur's troops. If you want to survive, you go and find the Americans. They are coming in from that side. You go and find them. And he ran through the streets with his siblings. He led a bunch of children and he found the Americans. This other little boy next to him, 8 years old, was shot by a sniper, but they made it to the end of the road. And an American GI from the Ohio National Guard picked him up, said, "We got you. We got you." And my American GI saved my dad, his sister, his brother that day, and he made his way to America. And he went on to serve in the U.S. military. He served in Korea, and from him, I grew up with this intense amount of and I say it many times, hard work, dedication, a real pride in being, despite my accent, in America, and how America saved him and the free country that it is. And by the way, I didn't totally was aware that in Ukraine, decades later, I was then saved by American soldiers again around the world. So 2 generations of a family in a row, we were saved by American soldiers who came to grab us. And just thought what an incredible similarity that is. But, he was, and we grew up watching John Wayne films together and World War II films together. And I was fascinated by conflict, because of him, maybe. He wouldn't talk about it till I was probably in my mid to late teens. He kept it inside. And then at the anniversary for the Battle of Manila, we were in the Philippines and he just started talking about it. And for the years after that, it was what we talked about a lot of. And I just got this sense of right and wrong in war and the good trying to stop the evil. And I believe firmly in that. And that's what the good side has to do. It has to fight hard. And my dad had all these real clear morals. And he was a very strict Catholic as well. And that's where I got a lot of my faith from, was my father. My mother, on the other hand, was this just sort of almost like an artist. You know, she wanted to travel the world, but she wanted to surround herself with filmmakers and poets, and she was totally free and outgoing, which is sort of different to my father. But they worked well together. But she made a habit of whenever we went on vacation, we wouldn't go and sit on a beach. We would go and live with a tribe in Venezuela. We would go fishing down the Amazon. We would go tenting in Botswana. We were in, again, the jungles of Myanmar, because she felt that if you want, you got to go and meet people, real people. You know, you mustn't just go and the world has so many different incredible cultures and places that you should go and see them and experience them, and that should educate you as well and make you a more rounded person. So I got that from her, and I honestly think that I just had two perfect parents on both sides who were very different, but had the same moral backbone,
Hmm.
you know? And I think that you can be so different in many ways, but if you share that moral backbone and you share the desire to work hard, those are core values, and share your beliefs. Those are just core values that can bring any two people together. So I was so lucky to have both of them. And they died before I was injured in Ukraine. In fact, I flew from my father's funeral to Ukraine to cover it. And I
Wow.
honestly think that I was saved by angels that day, both by my daughters, but also by my father, who was looking out for me. You know, we'd just buried him. And I feel that there, in many ways, he was there to save me.
Benjamin Hall's our guest, and I got to ask you because you mentioned them just a moment ago. You come from a wonderful family, and we know that just by listening to you now and reading the book. But I got to ask you, you have these three beautiful, wonderful daughters, Iris, Anna,
I've got
Hero.
four now.
Well, no, that's what I'm getting at. Like, what are
Oh.
you and Alicia thinking? You've gone through this trauma. You now have three beautiful daughters. You know, I'm marrying couples in America now, and I say to them, you know, what about children? They'll say, well, we might have one, maybe two, but it's tough in this world to have more than two children. And here's Alicia and Benjamin, who have already three beautiful daughters. And even after the trauma, they make sage. So I got to ask you, what were you guys thinking? How did you come to that decision? We're open to life again.
Yeah, I'm for many reasons. I think that and I always used to also I understand the cost of having kids, and understand, looking ahead, and should it affect how many children you have? And it was actually what happened in Ukraine that made us realize that we know there can be no greater blessing at all. And that's what, and we felt that there should be one more, both as a sign of that we had gone through the worst, but that you can build great things, wonderful, beautiful things out of even what could have been the worst thing. And our little daughter, Sage, she's now 6 months old. And that's what she represents for us, is that no matter how hard you might be hit, no matter if you fall down, you can pick up and you can build again. You can build great things. And she is that. And we never wanted what happened to me to be the sign that, again, life will be different with things we can't do. No, there's nothing we can't do, and bring it on. And it has, I mean, she's just seems to be the perfect fourth to the whole family. And so, yeah,
At
we're
the end of
lucky.
Resolute, his book, Benjamin doesn't know yet when he's writing this whether it's going to be a boy or girl. So we call it Baby A. And he basically gives a great insight into what is or should be the meaning of our lives. And how did you and Alicia come to decide on the name Sage?
Well, there's no personal connection to it, to be honest. But I mean, it was someone who was wise, a sage, and it was just that was it. To be honest,
It's a
someone who
lot
was
of pressure
wise.
to put. It's a lot of
We like the
pressure to put
sound
on
of
that
it.
child, Benjamin. That's a lot of pressure to put on her. She has to be.
Yeah, true.
I hope she is a wise, wise, wonderful person. Now let's get momentarily political here. Um, when you talk about your father having a core set of principal values, knowing the difference between right and wrong, I'm afraid I fall into that category as well. So, from the moment that Russia invaded Ukraine, it's as clear to me now as it was at the beginning of the invasion that they were up against an invincible evil. And but I'm troubled that the people that I very often align with in America slowly getting weak in terms of support for the people of Ukraine who have suffered incredibly. My feeling is that we need resolve, and that we need to say we're with you, and we're not going to bend, and we're not going to say it's difficult and it's costly to support you. But what do you make of the fact that there has been a movement away from active support for the people of Ukraine? I'm not sure I understand it. Again, as a journalist, I think you might.
Yeah. I would start off by saying that I felt that the conflict had reached a point where it could have become sort of forever war,
Mm,
frozen along those front lines, and that there had to be a level of dialogue. And I think even the Ukrainians understood that. And as much as that hurts, and as much as you would say, let's just fight this forever, I think the Russian war machine was always kind of going to be pushing back in that sense. And I do think that if they had had all the it'd be given all the weapons that they needed right at the beginning, that actually could have been over very quickly. But I think it was dripped out over a while, and so
mm.
it's interesting to see people turn away from supporting, as you would say, right over wrong. But I think it's understandable that we need to be having some level of dialogue. I don't like the direction it's going in necessarily. I think that perhaps a lot will be given away to the Russians, more so than for the Ukrainians. I just have to hope that they can keep doing it, and hope that Europe can step up where America has pulled back a bit. Um, but
No, that's
it's
fine.
hard. And I speak to
No,
yeah, I
I hear
speak to
what you're saying.
Ukrainians all the time as well, and they all want peace. They want to find a way of doing it, and they are looking for ways, but they don't want to be stabbed in the back as they do so.
You've had Benjamin Hall as our guest. You've had the experience of interchange with Mr. Zelensky. I know, again, too, there are elements of the press that have been very critical of him. Again, I see him as a remarkable man of great courage and great leadership skills. Would that be still your vision of President Zelensky?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I write about him in the book as well. I went back to Ukraine after the attack and I interviewed him. And look, he is someone who, without President Zelensky, Ukraine would have fallen at the beginning. I mean, that sense of leadership, where he was on the streets releasing videos when the Russians were surrounding the capital, he got that country together. He pulled them together. And you need a real fighter in this war. You don't need this great sort of quasi politician. You need a leader, and I think he has led that country really well. Um, and Yeah, again, it's you hear all these social media is a big topic of social media. Is that all the things that come out about Zelensky and about um, you know all the negative things, which are not true as far as I've seen. I sat with him for over an hour, and I've talked to him, and I've listened to him speak philosophically about the importance of fighting and pushing back against Russia, and of course, the good versus evil, and how that battle represents the whole world, and how every country needs to stand up and push back. And if you don't help Ukraine at the moment, then other countries like China are going to be incentivized to do something similar. So this is a really important battle that we have to send the world, that the Western coalition should be sending the world, that says, look, whoever does this anywhere in the world, we will stop you. We will stop the bad. And it's that's not exactly what we're seeing at the moment.
Benjamin Hall, in his book, Resolute, also talks about the fact that there's a period where he realizes, actually at a social gathering, that his mind is not recovering as quickly as he would like. And he and Alicia talk about that. But I'm mentioning that particular part of the book because, Benjamin, just in this half hour we spent together, you have one of the sharpest, most clear and rooted minds in the world. And whatever was wrong, I'm telling you, man, you are back in the game. You are just amazing. But I promise, last question. This whole concept of being spared, of being saved. I remember when we had Derek Jeter, the baseball player, on. I said every American kid wants to be a successful baseball player, popular, have skills like you do. But why did you get these? And I got to ask, do you go through? I know the answer from reading both books. Do you go through wondering why Benjamin Hall was spared? What are you supposed to do with the rest of your life, Benjamin?
I don't ask often why it was me, but I do ask, what can I do with the gift I was given?
Mm.
And again, it comes back to Pierre and Sash as much as anyone else. I've been given a real second chance. And, the greatest feedback I get, the greatest reviews when people reach out and say, I read your story and it has helped me. And so I honestly think you can pass that on to other people. So many people were there to give it to me when I needed it. When I was really low and I was so injured, there were people around my bedside. There were people talking to me about how they got through it. And so that's what I see now is that's what I want to do is pass on. Don't ask why it happened, because again, I believe in embracing what's happened to you. It has happened to me, and that's fine, but let's not waste it. Let's find good to it. And so that I think is the biggest battle right now is finding what is a purpose? What I want to do more. I want to find a way of doing and helping more. And I'm still looking exactly for what that is. Now, both books were an attempt to do that, but I think I will forever be the person that thinks there's more to do. And I'm not quite doing enough. How many more people can I talk to? How many more people can you help? And everyone counts, but and you want to do more. Like you got to keep moving in life, And I people who stop and think that's it. I'm not one of those people. I'm like, there's got to be something else. I want to keep doing more. Like, what's the next thing we can do? Like reaching goals is always disappointing because then they're done, and you're like, oh, well, I need another one now. Like, let's quick move on,
I thank Benjamin Hall for being with us, and I will ask our listeners and viewers to please get Resolute, also to Saving as well. Benjamin, the first interview for me many, many years ago was with the film director Frank Capra, who did It's a Wonderful Life, the movie. And of course, it's a story of one man thinking his life doesn't have meaning and finding out how, in fact, his life has been a wonderful life because he left the world a better place. And every day you do that for so many people. And I know you can't stand personal praise, but I'm telling you, man, you are an amazing person who in both books has helped me. And I'm sure for every person who reads the books or has a chance to watch you on Fox News, you're healing a troubled, needful world every day, using the trauma of your life to be a healing grace for many of us. And I thank you. Keep writing, keep speaking, keep giving witness, because we need Benjamin Hall to keep on keeping on. Thank you so much. And love to Alicia, too.
Thank you.
Man, you are.
I'll pass that on. Your podcast does the same as well, so it's teamwork. We do it together.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Thanks for being with us on Personally Speaking. If you need to reach me, you can do that at personallyspeakingpodcast@gmail.com. You probably listened to this program on SiriusXM, the Catholic channel, 129, but you can also watch the program on YouTube by searching under Personally Speaking with Monsignor Jim Lisante. We're also on Facebook at Personally Speaking with Monsignor Jim Lisante and on Instagram at Personally Speaking Podcast. If you go to Personally Speaking with Monsignor Jim Lisante, you are offered not only this interview, which you can watch, but also Sunday Mass. We'd love to have you as a extended part of the Our Lady of Lourdes family from Massapequa Park, New York. I'm privileged to serve as host and executive producer of Personally Speaking. Our producer is Lisa Janovitz. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be with you again next time on Personally Speaking.